So it's Christmas, and I thought the best topic to talk about during this time would be Jeffrey Epstein. You know, America's favorite creepy uncle. So, uh, it's not really about Jeffrey Epstein, though, that I want to talk about. Uh, it's more about the nature of deceit. Basically, how our system operates, at least in real life and not as advertised. So, when I was young, I thought that, like when I was in middle school, elementary school, high school, I thought that um, people in power got there because of hard work, skills, things like that of that nature. That they followed codes of a sort. They had loyalties and whatnot, and that overall society had advanced from a more primitive, quote unquote, time when we didn't have those things. I was raised on that, and maybe it wasn't explicitly said, but it was heavily implied through what I was told. And so, as I got older, through my mid to late 20s, and now, I find that all of that is completely and utterly false. Now, of course, there are countries that are way worse than America in terms of, like, corruption. You got, like, places like Russia where literally you have to bribe every person there is in order for them to actually do their job and help you. Otherwise, you'll be punished. But I find that in the first world, while, people at the bottom and the middle class, they have they have like integrity over their jobs and things like that. I find that the higher up you go, that becomes less and less true. Now, I don't know how corrupt our politicians are in comparison to, say, Russia, but like Jeffrey Epstein, with these files that have been coming out, we find out that, basically in a way, the worst is true. It wasn't just Jeffrey, and Ghislaine wasn't just trafficking girls to him. He was probably a middleman, to be honest, to someone up above, more powerful, but maybe Trump, I don't know, to like all these. So there's like celebrities, and then there's like people like Lawrence Krauss. I think Stephen Hawking went to Epstein Island. I think that was a meme for a while. And then you got the billionaire class. You got the Jeff Bezos, the Peter Thiels, the Elon Musks. All have been shown to have some connections to Epstein, right? Even after he was convicted of being a pedophile, they still hung out with him. They still colluded with him. All those things. They still worked with the guy. And so this guy was part of a huge network of the elites. And we don't know how far this rabbit hole goes. Like, there's 1 million files, which could fill up a whole room, and a whole building. And, of course, Kash Patel blatantly lied about everything. He said outright that there were no files. There are files. Millions of them, actually. This is just the surface. More is going to be coming out in the weeks ahead. So that's going to be fun. But we figured out that this entire system is just corrupt to the core. Now, I'm not saying all politicians are involved in this Epstein thing. but certainly a hell of a ton lots, which just sets your mind differently about this. You know, you think, hold on, the wind's blowing real hard. Sorry. I'm in Utah, so it's kind of cold and windy right now. If you can't hear anything, I am very sorry about that. Anywho, so I always film outside. So, you know, it makes you wonder how well our country actually is in terms of corruption in comparison to other countries. And if, like, the entire idea of, like, the advanced first world non-corrupt and then the third world totally corrupt is a false dichotomy. I think it is at this point. So we have what I've been talking about earlier that I segued away. Now I'm segueing back towards the nature of deceit. So deceit, by its very nature, you can't prepare for. It's impossible to prepare. It's impossible to really guard yourself against deceit. Deceit comes from everywhere. Comes from everybody. Comes from everywhere, and it targets everyone. Probably not equally, because you could conceivably look up stuff and counteract it, but it affects everyone to a certain degree, because deceit is such an easy tool of control. You know, people. There's a quote that's falsely attributed to, was it Pat Barnum, the guy who run the circuses? There's a sucker born every minute. That's true. You know, children are basically these blank slates in terms of information and can just be filled with any sort of ideas. And of course, that's just used to fill them up with deceit. Like, you go after the weakest. Children are the weakest, but then it extends to adulthood, though. You know, not just simple, regular things like, well, Epstein isn't a simple, regular thing, but it extends to simple and regular things like, you know, say, how good were the Spartans, militarily speaking. You know, there's so much myth and pop culture sprang up around that you forget the actual historical reality that the Spartans weren't all that good. And as soon as the other city-states started to build their armies, these Spartans were basically easily beaten because they weren't all that adaptive. They just won through brute force. So things like that. Deceit is something impossible to control, because it's so useful and it could be targeted towards anyone. But the things that people tell you can make you incredibly dangerous, because the deceit that they can fill you lies that can make other people seem the enemies when they're not, or your nation is the good guy when it's actually not, and make you incredibly dangerous. So honestly, the whole free will thing, you know, is there free will or is there not? I don't think that matters all that much, to be honest, because with things like deceit and other things like that, it could basically nullifies it. Because most of the things you do are not really consciously chosen. Like with consent. The idea about consent is that you're supposed to be fully informed before you can make a choice. If our, like, standard state of affairs is that you don't know enough information, and people, all types of people, not just people in power, all types of people, say misinformation, then you can't really, you're not an agent making choices anyways. You're making all these false choices anyway. So it's like, free will is kind of like 90% bullshit, to be honest. So, what does that mean? It means that when you're born, you're basically born damaged. People say that everyone is traumatized to some extent through childhood. I like to add to that and say that deceit is one of them. You are born and you are filled with your head with lies. I guess some well-meaning, others not, from everyone around you. And the goal, at least the idea of skepticism, which is a recent invention, by the way, is to try and deprogram yourself of everything that you've been taught, basically. And so I've been trying to deprogram myself. And it's difficult. And it's even worse because people like to co-opt the deprogram, wake up, open your eyes. They use the language of people that are trying to find the truth. Here I go talking about the truth, but they use it's kind of raining. I hope it's not going to get too rainy. Okay, so anyways, so they're using the truth. They use the language of truth seeking to sell you lies. So it makes the situation even worse than before. So knowing this, my advice to you, the best that I can give right now, honestly, is to obviously not believe everything that comes out of the internet rumor mill in terms of what's happening with these Epstein files. Always wait for follow-up information. Always look for corroborating evidence. See here, back when I voted for Trump, before I changed my views due to Gaza and whatnot, I was completely naive about this whole elite pedophile thing, because as I said before, I was deceived, damaged through bad information, and so I was just in a state where I was just like, anything is possible. So, I basically believed everything, every claim, everything about that, and that's part of the reason why I ended up voting for Trump. Really, the main reason was the EMP thing, which, the EMPs don't really matter, but I guess you can target the grid in other ways. Anyways, point is, I voted for Trump because of it. It turns out that he was massively involved in the Epstein files. And it's because I turned off my brain and started trusting people and started listening to all these conspiracies completely unfiltered. Because I'm like, these things sound insane, but so was Jeffrey Epstein. And the fact I didn't listen about that and it blew up in my face, I should just keep listening to him. Listen, you're not behind. Don't feel like you're behind the curve or that you're being suckered just because you're skeptical of the story. Like, for instance, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, right? It's the meme right here that I'm showing you. At first I was skeptical of that. Over time, I became less skeptical of that. Now I believe it. But being skeptical of the claim doesn't make you gullible, doesn't make you a government agent or a sucker or anything like that. It means you're wise. So even if something seems obvious or makes intuitive sense, or it sounds like something that should be happening, that would happen, don't automatically believe it. Always check your source. Always find corroborating evidence. Always question yourself. Always say, wait, if this is true, then this should also be true. Basically, don't fall for the hype. Don't follow along with the crowd, because that's just another way of deceiving yourself. And I guess being deceived by others in turn. That's what guys need to know about these Epstein files that are going to be coming out in the coming weeks. It might be entertaining to watch a YouTube video or two that speculates about what the elites are up to, But in the end, you should never believe fully out of hand what these videos say. You shouldn't believe out of hand what these files themselves say. Basically, you should look to see which type of information it is. Is it low information? Is it high information? There's like different grade levels to these stuff. And if you do that, then you should be good. You should follow the leads, but you should always be skeptical. Okay, the rain is stopping right now. Okay, so as I was saying, don't follow the rumor mill. That's the one thing I learned, and that's the one thing I'm going to deliver to you. And, anyways, and don't do simple false dichotomies. Don't assume that just because the Justice Department is on the side of Donald Trump, which they kind of are, doesn't mean that everything they tell you is a lie. Just like everything that the person on the internet says that you're listening to, like the blogs or whatever, is also lying. The point is that listen to both sides also while you're doing this. And, and never repeat information that you haven't corroborated yourself. That too, I would leave you with. Anyways, I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.